Okay, here goes our next. I think I'm going to read 3 chapters, and that's the end of the book. So here we go. Okay, chapter 25. Technically, of course, he was not alone. Lucius Clark's shop was filled with dolls, lady dolls and baby dolls, dolls with eyes that opened and closed, and dolls with painted-on eyes, dolls dressed as queens, and dolls wearing sailor suits. Edward had never cared for dolls. He found them annoying and self-centered, twittery and vain. This opinion was immediately reinforced by his first shelf-mate, a china doll with green glass eyes and red lips and dark brown hair. She was wearing a green satin dress that fell to her knees. "What are you?" she said in a high-pitched voice when Edward was placed on the shelf next to her. "I am a rabbit," said Edward. The doll let out a small squeak. "You're in the wrong place," she said. "This is a shop for dolls, not rabbits." Edward said nothing. "Shoo!" said the doll. "I would love to shoo," said Edward, "but it is obvious that I cannot." After a long silence the doll said, "I hope you don't think that anyone is going to buy you." Again Edward said nothing. "The people who come in here want dolls, not rabbits. They want baby dolls or elegant dolls such as myself, dolls with pretty dresses, dolls with eyes that open and close." "I have no interest in being purchased," said Edward. The doll gasped. "You don't want somebody to buy you?" she said. "You don't want to be owned by a little girl who loves you?" Sarah Ruth, Abilene. Their names went through Edward's head like the notes of a sad, sweet song. "I have already been loved," said Edward. "I have been loved by a girl named Abilene. I have been loved by a fisherman and his wife, and a hobo and his dog. I have been loved by a boy who played the harmonica and by a girl who died." "Don't talk to me about love," he said. "I have known love." This impassioned speech shut up Edward's shelf-mate for a considerable amount of time. "Well," she said at last, "still, my point is that no one is going to buy you." They did not speak to each other again. The doll was sold 2 weeks later to a grandmother who was purchasing her for a grandchild. "Yes," she said to Lucius Clark, "that one right there, the one with the green dress. She is quite lovely." "Yes," said Lucius, "she is, isn't she?" And she plucked the doll from the shelf. "Good-bye and good riddance," thought Edward. The spot next to the rabbit stayed vacant for some time. Day after day the door to the shop opened and closed, letting in early morning sun or late afternoon light, lifting the hearts of the dolls inside, all of them thinking, when the door swung wide, that this time, the person entering the shop would be the one who wanted them. Edward was the lone contrarian. He prided himself on not allowing his heart to lift inside of him. He prided himself on keeping his heart silent, immobile, closed tight. "I am done with hope," thought Edward Tulane. And then one day, at dusk, right before he closed the shop, Lucius Clark placed another doll on the shelf next to Edward. Chapter 26. "There you are, milady. Meet the rabbit doll," said Lucius. The doll mender walked away, turning out the lights one by one. In the gloom of the shop Edward could see that the doll's head, like his, had been broken and repaired. Her face was, in fact, a web of cracks. She was wearing a baby bonnet. "How do you do?" he said in a high, thin voice. "I am pleased to make your acquaintance." "Hello," said Edward. "Have you been here long?" she asked. "Months and months," said Edward, "but I don't care. One place is the same as another to me." "Oh, not for me," said the doll. "I have lived 100 years, and in that time I have been in places that were heavenly and others that were horrid. After a time you learn that each place is different, and you become a different doll in each place too. Quite different." "100 years?" said Edward. "I am old." The doll mender confirmed this. He said he was mending me that I am at He said as he was mending me that I am at least that. At least 100. at least 100 years old. Edward thought about everything that had happened to him in his short life. What kind of adventures would you have if you were in the world for a century? The old doll said, I wonder who will come for me this time. Someone will come. Someone always comes. Who will it be? I don't care if anyone comes for me, said Edward. But that's dreadful, said the old doll. There's no point in going on if you feel that way. No point at all. You must be filled with expectancy. You must be awash in hope. You must wonder who will love you, whom you will love next. I'm done with being loved, Edward told her. I'm done with loving. It's too painful. Pish, said the old doll. Where's your courage? Somewhere else, I guess, said Edward. You disappoint me, she said. You disappoint me greatly. If you have no intention of loving or being loved, then the whole journey is pointless. You might as well leap from the shelf right now and let yourself shatter into a million pieces. Get it over with. Get it all over with now. I would leap if I was able, said Edward. Shall I push you? Said the old doll. No, thank you, Edward said to her. Not that you could, he muttered to himself. What's that? Nothing, said Edward. The dark in the doll shop was now complete. The old doll and Edward sat on their shelf and stared straight ahead. You disappoint me, said the old doll. Her words made Edward think of Pellegrina, of warthogs and princesses, of listening and love, of spells and curses. What if there was somebody waiting? What if there was somebody waiting to love him? What if there was somebody whom he would love again? Was it possible? Edward felt his heart stir. No, he told his heart, not possible, not possible. In the morning, Lucius Clark came and unlocked the shop. Good morning, my darlings, he called out to them. Good morning, my lovelies. He pulled up the shades on the windows. He turned on the light over his tools. He switched the sign on the door to open. The first customer was a little girl with her father. Are you looking for something special? Lucius Clark said to them. Yes, said the girl. I'm looking for a friend. Her father put her on his shoulders, and they walked slowly around the shop. The girl studied each doll carefully. She looked Edward right in the eyes. She nodded at him. Have you decided, Natalie? Her father asked. Yes, she said. I want the one in the baby bonnet. Oh, said Lucius Clark, you know that she is very old. She is an antique. She needs me, said Natalie firmly. Next to Edward, the old doll let out a sigh. She seemed to sit up straighter. Lucius came and took her off the shelf and handed her to Natalie, and when they left, the girl's father opened the door for his daughter, and the old doll, a bright shaft of early morning light came flooding in, and Edward heard quite clearly, as if she were sitting next to him, the old doll's voice. There's a good illustration of him on the shelf alone again. Open your heart, she said gently. Someone will come. Someone will come for you. But first, you must open your heart. The door closed. The sunlight disappeared. Someone will come. Edward's heart stirred. He thought for the first time in a long time of the house on Egypt Street and of Abilene winding his watch and then bending toward him and placing it on his left leg, saying, I will come home to you. No, no, he told himself, don't believe it. Don't let yourself believe it. But it was too late. Someone will come for you. The China Rabbit's heart had begun again to open. Chapter 27. Seasons passed, fall and winter and spring and summer. Leaves blew in through the open door of Lucius Clark's shop, and rain and the green, outrageous, hopeful light of spring. People came and went, grandmothers and doll collectors and little girls with their mothers. Edward Tulane waited. The seasons turned into years. Edward Tulane waited. He repeated the old doll's words over and over until they wore a smooth groove of hope in his brain. Someone will come. Someone will come for you. And the old doll was right. Someone did come. It was springtime. It was raining. There were dogwood blossoms on the floor of Lucius Clark's shop. She was a small girl, maybe 5 years old, and while her mother struggled to close a blue umbrella, the little girl walked around the store, stopping and staring solemnly at each doll and then moving on. When she came to Edward, she stood in front of him for what seemed like a long time. She looked at him, and he looked back at her. "Someone will come," Edward said. "Someone will come for me." The girl smiled, and then she stood on her tiptoes and took Edward off the shelf. She cradled him in her arms. She held him in the same ferocious, tender way Sarah Ruth had held him. "Oh," thought Edward, "I remember this." "Madam, madam," said Lucius Clark, "could you please attend to your daughter? She's holding a very fragile, very precious, quite expensive doll." "Maggie," said the woman. She looked up from the still open umbrella. "What have you got?" "A rabbit," said Maggie. "A what?" said the mother. "A rabbit," said Maggie again. "I want him." "Remember, we're not buying anything today. We're only looking," said the woman. "Madam," said Lucius Clark, "please." The woman came and stood over Maggie. She looked down at Edward. The rabbit felt dizzy. He wondered for a minute if his head had cracked open again, if he was dreaming. "Look, Mamma," said Maggie. "Look at him." "I see him," said the woman. She dropped the umbrella. She put her hand on the locket that hung around her neck, and Edward saw then that it was not a locket at all. It was a watch, a pocket watch. It was his watch. "Edward?" said Abilene. "Yes," said Edward. "Edward," she said again, certain this time. "Yes," said Edward. "Yes, yes, yes, it's me." Once there was a China rabbit who was loved by a little girl. The rabbit went on an ocean journey and fell overboard and was rescued by a fisherman. He was buried under garbage and unburied by a dog. He traveled for a long time with the hobos and worked for a short time as a scarecrow. Once there was a rabbit who loved a little girl and watched her die. The rabbit danced on the streets of Memphis. His head was broken open in a diner and was put together again by a doll mender. And the rabbit swore that he would not make the mistake of loving again. Once there was a rabbit who danced in a garden in springtime with the daughter of the woman who had loved him at the beginning of his journey. The girl swung the rabbit as she danced in circles. Sometimes they went so fast, the two of them, that it seemed as if they were flying. Sometimes it seemed as if they both had wings. Once, oh marvelous once, there was a rabbit who found his way home.